Tak přátelé, a teď si dejme krásné video na závěr dne. Je to o tom něčem podstatném po roce 2014 na Ukrajině. O tom se samozřejmě tady mlčí a naše provládní sdělovací prostředky to vehementně tají, anebo to okamžitě vyvrací, že?
Ужасная война. Никто ее никогда не хотел. Сейчас страдают мирные люди.
But the war effectively started 8 years ago with Ukraine's terror bombing of Donetsk. In an exclusive documentary on Press TV.
Now, of course, Ukraine has been shelling Donetsk for months now. Indeed, it's admittedly for the last 8 years. When they're not trying to hit military targets, they focus on civilian targets.
British filmmaker Johnny Miller goes to the region to delve into the heart of the conflict between the two neighboring countries.
Now, I'm standing in front of what is, or used to be, a school. It's just around the corner from my apartment here in Donetsk. And recently it was hit by the Ukrainian army, most likely with NATO-supplied weapons. It's just one of many schools that have been hit here in Donetsk by the Ukrainian army as they try to terrorize the local population. And many children have been killed as well. Just in the last 10 days, I've been to 2 funerals of children, 6-year-old Alina and the 8-year-old Maria, who were killed in playgrounds along with other children. Indeed, children killed in war, for me, is a particular failing of humanity. And increasingly, here in Donetsk, it's being done with NATO-supplied weapons. Now, there's almost no Western reporters here in Donbass, Russian-held Donbass. And so the Western world simply doesn't get to hear about what damage to civilians and how many civilians and children are killed with the weapons that NATO supplies to Ukraine. So it's very, very important that a message is put out to NATO countries and indeed to Ukraine that NATO weapons should not be used to target and kill civilians, because that's what's happening here in Donetsk. Whatever you think about the war, it's important that Ukraine stops targeting civilians with NATO weapons.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, a lot of people ask me why are the Ukrainians targeting civilians there, and it can seem surprising to some people. Only about 10 days ago, I was sitting in a cafe in the center of Donetsk near my house. The building shook, the windows shattered, landed over myself, and 2 missiles landed 20 meters either side of the cafe, one outside my local supermarket as well. And this is, I know this area very well, it's simply civilians there, no military targets. So why is Ukraine intentionally shelling civilians? And I recently read a comment by a Ukrainian general who said that Russia will start targeting civilians soon in Bakhmut because they're failing militarily. I think that's a very revealing comment, because that's what Ukraine has been doing. They started in 2014 when they're failing to defeat the so-called pro-Russian separatists militarily. They resorted to shelling civilians in the hope of dampening the civilian population's will and support for the local authorities there. So it started happening in 2014, famously when Ukrainian jet bombed the center of Luhansk. Horrific scenes, I mentioned that in the documentary. And it's been going on intermittently over the last 8, going on 9 years now. And since Russia sent its troops into Ukraine, it's escalated. It's such an important story because it's the reason why the vast majority of people in the Donbass region that's controlled by Russia no longer want to be part of Ukraine. I mean, they say to me, when your own government is bombing your own people, I mean, everyone has near-miss stories like I do. Everyone knows people who've been killed.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Children have been killed. How can you continue being part of Ukraine? And I think that's the reason I made the documentary. Obviously, I spent a lot of time there. The reason I focused on that is to say that there is another way to end this war. NATO says the only way is to send Ukraine weapons to take back this territory. Well, if you listen to the civilians in Donetsk and Crimea, for example, the vast majority of people in Crimea are pro-Russian, then there is another way to end this war, and that's by listening to the civilians on both sides. And it will mean Ukraine has to give up territory, but increasingly the world is understanding. Caught on camera, a Ukrainian strike in the center of Donetsk.
When I arrived at the scene, the body of 24-year-old Maria Pirogova was still lying on the street, covered in a blanket.
To je útok Ukrajinců na město Parkov, myslím, v Doněcké oblasti.
Now, while many of the attacks by Ukraine in Donetsk are aimed at civil infrastructure, administration buildings, some are simple terror attacks against civilians. Maria was one of 4 victims of the strike. 2 of the others were musicians. But this strike was nothing special, just another day in Donetsk. Whenever I had no other filming planned, I would simply chase the incoming. Sometimes they would land harmlessly in an empty street. At other times, I would arrive at a bus station or a market with bodies on the pavement and friends and family breaking down in tears. A common occurrence in Donetsk, a nighttime artillery barrage by the Ukrainian army. One of these attacks happened not long after I arrived in May. We're just at a cafe, it's in the evening here in Donetsk, and there was massive incoming. All the civilians and their children ran down to the basement. As I got closer to the impact site, the realization dawned. The missiles had landed 15 meters outside the front door of my own apartment building. To be honest, it shakes you up. The ambulances, the burnt-out cars, my shocked and shaken neighbors. As I walked over the smashed glass into my own apartment, the terror bombing of Donetsk had suddenly become very real. For the last 2 weeks, I've been interviewing people who've been living under the shelling for the last 8 years, but now to be happening around my area for the Ukrainian government to be targeting this neighborhood really brings home just what it's like to live in an area in which your government is directly shelling you and killing your civilians. There's a woman in tears behind me. But this story is so essential to understand this conflict. And over 10,000 people have been killed here in Donbass over the last 8 years, over 100 children. Just a few days ago, a child of 5 was killed in her apartment while she was watching TV. And this story of the Ukrainian government intentionally shelling and killing its own civilians over the last 8 years has just not been told in the West.
Ну что вы не видите, что у нас происходит? Мирные люди, что тут было? Это ж не первый раз, уже 2-й раз. Там, да всю вот эту вот, когда весь квартал сверху до низа, все. Люди, вот же, они что же...
Říká, tam nebyli žádní vojáci. Celá oblast odsud až dolů byla bombardována a jsou ty lidé ještě naživu.
Вы эти люди, что ли? Вот он, смотрите, сверху до низа горело все. Вот. Ну что тут хотите вы понять? Я не знаю, что это такое.
Nevím, co se vlastně děje se světem. Co je tady cílem? Jenom civilisté.
Творится на белом свете. И что тут? Что тут бомбить можно было? Только людей мирных.
The school over the road from my apartment was hit, killing 1, and a school on the neighboring street, killing 4. Rare was a day in 2022 without casualties.
Прилетел снаряд с украинской стороны, разбомбила школу. Дочечка моя училась здесь.
Takže přiletěla jsem střela ukrajinská, na tu školu moje dcera tady studovala. Naštěstí děti byly na externí vzdělávání někde mimo školu.
Хорошо, что она была в дистанционке, ранила.
Ale učitelé byli zranění, bylo to hrozné.
Это ужасно, просто ужасно. Я не знаю теперь, где мой ребенок учиться будет.
Nevím, kde moje dítě bude studovat a zdali ona vůbec tady bude studovat.
Ты вообще будет учиться здесь. Разумение нормального человека. Это просто фашисты.
Je to mimo lidské chápání. Oni jsou prostě fašisté, kteří se snaží nás eliminovat. To je všechno.
Которые стремятся уничтожить нас и все, больше ничего. Им больше ничего не нужно, просто вот
Oni nepotřebují nic jiného, jenom zabíjet veškeré lidi na Donbase. To je...
убивать всех людей на Донбассе. И все.
To je všechno.
One day I was out filming in the adjoining city of Makiyevka.
Jednou jsem filmoval ve městě Makijevka.
We were told of a child recently killed and we stumbled upon her funeral. Her body in display in an open casket. Her neighbors and friends gathered to say their goodbyes and to support the family.
At the gravesite, not a dry eye. A child killed in war is a special tragedy.
Она гуляла с родителями возле 56-й школы, потом уже...
Ona byla na procházce s mými rodiči poblíž školy číslo 56.
Возле 56-й школы, потом уже услышала звонок.
Potom jsem slyšela matku, jak na mě volá a říká, že se dostali pod palbu.
От мамы о том, что они попали под обстрел. Я побежала искать других.
Tak já jsem běžela, abych se pohledla po svých sestrách, ale nemohla jsem je najít, říká Angelína.
Сестер. Ну, не было связи, не смогла найти.
Tak jsem běžela k mé matce a potom do nemocnice a na jednotku intenzivní péče.
Я побежала к маме. Поехала в больницу. В реанимацию.
Čekali jsme na odpověď několik dnů.
Несколько суток ждали ответа.
Čekali jsme na nějaké výsledky, přinejmenším o nějakém zlepšení stavu.
Ждали хоть каких-то результатов. Какого-то улучшения.
Připravovali jsme sami sebe na to nejhorší.
Нас просто готовили к худшему.
Bylo jasné od začátku, že to nikdo nechtěl nám říct.
Все было понятно с самого начала. Ну, просто никто ничего не хотел говорить.
Мы просто хотим, чтобы был мир. Всё.
Chceme prostě jenom mír.
Мы не хотим, чтобы дети страдали.
Nechceme, aby děti trpěly.
Все эти дети не заслуживают такой жизни.
Tyto děti si nezaslouží takovýto život, nebo život tohoto druhu.
Этот ребенок был рожден в войну.
Nina matka. Toto dítě bylo narozeno během války a válka si ji vzala.
Война его забрала. Она просто не заслуживает это.
Nezasloužila si to.
Остановите это все.
Zastavte to.
A few days later, I went to speak to another family of a child killed. They shouted at me and told me to leave. Boris Johnson, Macron, you did this. Shame on you. Increasingly, NATO is supplying the weapons to kill their children.
Вы видите, что творится.
Lidé, vidíte, co tady se děje? Vraťte se, musíte nabít zase svých smyslů.
Великобритания, вся Европа.
Velká Británie, celá Evropa a Spojené státy stejně, tak ať se vrátí, ať nabídou zdravých smyslů.
И в том числе Америка. Одумайте, мы все люди одинаковые. Будьте так добры.
Jsme všichni stejní lidé, buďte dobří, buďte laskaví a ať se vám vrátí zdravé smysly.
Опомнитесь, Господи. Уразумей.
Bože, vrátím jejich svědomí.
Ни одному ребенку. Дети.
Nikdy jsme nepřáli to ďábelské zlé jakékoliv osobě, jakémukoliv dítěti. Děti jsou obětovány, nejvíce obětovaní,
Это святое, это самое святое.
obětované
Я воспитатель
bytosti.
этой девочки, которая...
Jsem učitelka dívky, která zemřela, která byla zabitá.
умерла, которая погибла. Я учу своих детей любви.
Učím svoje děti lásce a pochopení a to
И пониманию, и чтобы в мире был мир все.
a to je to, že by měl být mír na světě, protože válka je vždycky hrozná.
Да, потому что война всегда это страшно. Я прошу.
Žádám vás, prosím, zastavte válku, ať to každý slyší.
Остановите войну. Пусть все услышат. Пусть, пожалуйста, я очень прошу. Я заклинаю вас. Пусть не будет больше гибели.
Prosím vás hodně, ať nikdo jiný už neumírá v naší zemi. Děkuji vám.
На нашей земле. Спасибо.
Alina is only one of more than 150 children killed by Ukrainian shelling in 8 years of war here. This footage was taken in 2014. A Ukrainian jet drops a bomb in the center of Luhansk. 8 civilians were killed. Unable to win on the battlefield, Ukraine resorted to bombing civilians in an attempt to dampen local support for the so-called pro-Russian separatists. It didn't work, instead strengthening people's resolve to declare independence until 2022 to vote to join Russia. This is the Alley of Angels, a monument set up dedicated to the slaughter of children by Ukraine. And here in Oktoberski district, another monument to fallen civilians. The toys are for the children, while increasingly the slaughter of civilians by Ukraine is dismissed as Russian propaganda. Here it is simply the reality.
A man just came up to me while I was filming, and I told him that I was British, and he said, yes, there are lots of people like you here in the last 8 years who came and ate at the best restaurants. I'm supposed to be telling the world what's been going on here, i.e. the deaths of all these people, but he said they never told the truth.
Jsou to jenom lži, to jenom někdo napsal pravdu o nich. Co tady dělali? Jenom jezdili okolo a večeřeli, obědovali v luxusních hotelech, jako ty západní občané. Podívejte se.
Back in 2014, there was some honest reporting. This is a piece by CNN.
In this city, as the people of Donetsk sweep up the debris
Jo, v roce 2014 se objevilo údajně toto video.
of their homes and livelihoods, they are hardened against a president they say is killing his own people. We are Ukrainian, but they kill us, this man says. So we probably need our own country, because these people in Kiev, they are not brothers for us. The shells hit these homes days ago. 2 people were killed outside this block of flats last Wednesday. One of them was a 50-year-old woman, the other a 34-year-old woman. Her husband, who won't talk to us, he says he's in shock, managed to make it down to the cellar with their little child, but she just didn't have the time. And this is a story that repeats itself over and over in dozens of apartment blocks with civilians being killed by the constant shelling around Donetsk.
But over the years, journalists stopped coming, and the bombing of civilians became Russian propaganda. The only journalists who remained were a motley crew of independent journalists like Patrick Lancaster, Eva Bartlett, and German journalist Alina Lipp, who came to Donbass in the summer of 2021, long before Russia sent its army into Ukraine.
Ukraine was intentionally killing civilians before February 22. There were a lot of cases where, in fact, really snipers intentionally killed people who were on their way to work or somewhere else. It happened quite a lot. And this wasn't a mistake, this was really intentionally. And I've seen also schools who were destroyed in those districts. First I thought that this is more a conflict between soldiers, so who kill each other, and not soldiers killing civilians.
Tak to je první půlka toho videa, já vám tu druhou nabídnu zítra a bude tam taky překlad vždycky toho, co tady přeloženo není. Jo. Tak to je vše, přeji dobrou noc a hezký velikonoční pátek, Velký pátek.